Hey everybody, Andrew here. It's snowing a lot outside. I don't know if you could tell. So today we're going to do a little something different. We've got ourselves an old-fashioned bike versus. Hey guys, so today we are comparing the Yeti SB5.5 and the Santa Cruz Hightower LT. Since I started this channel and doing reviews, this has probably been the #1 asked question that I've gotten, especially after I released the LT video. The Yeti was my very first video that I did, and I kept getting, LT or SB5.5, and it's a really hard one to choose. So I'm not really trying to decide a winner. I'm just trying to pick out the differences for you guys, for you to make that decision for yourself. So this is my second time trying to do this video. The first time it ran 20 minutes long, just verbal vomiting everything. So I'm gonna really try and keep these points really short and concise. And if you have any follow-up questions, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I love having these discussions with you guys. So let's get down into it and let's take a look at both of these bikes. All right, so let's talk pricing and spec really quick on both bikes. This is the X1 Eagle build for the Yeti SB5.5, retails for just under $7,200. What you get is Fox factory suspension, so you get that nice slick Kashima coating front and back. It's going to have their own branded Yeti 800mm bars, Fox transfer post, the X1 Eagle drivetrain. The wheel set is DT Swiss XM481 rims laced to DT Swiss 350 hub, so really reliable wheel set there. Maxxis rubber front and back in the form of the Minion DHF and the 2.5 WT and the Aggressor. Now they do have less expensive builds. They start out just under $5,000 for their XT SLX build. You can go to their website to get the full spec breakdown of that. Still pretty expensive for just under $5,000. However, for a Yeti, I would say that's actually fairly affordable. That being said, moving over to the LT. Now this isn't a stock build, this is a frame up build, but I'm just using it for visual comparison. A comparable build to the XL1 Eagle would be Santa Cruz's own XL1 Eagle build, which retails for just under $6,800, so about a $400 difference. Near identical in terms of spec, in terms of SRAM, RockShox componentry. However, the biggest difference though is going to be in the suspension. You don't get the factory suspension like you do on the Yeti. You get the Performance Elite. You get the same damper, but it's the black coating, which I honestly don't think there's any difference. But if you like your bike to look a certain way, or like the gold, like Kashima's, it looks nicer. So it also comes with their own branded 800mm bars, so pretty comparable. So those are the differences there. You can get into an LT for just under $4,000, which I think is phenomenal. For a long travel 29er carbon fiber frame, I think that is a excellent price for what you get. It is going to be pretty base componentry, RockShox Revelation fork, but it's still an excellent fork. It's basically a pike with a motion control damper. So don't be thrown off by it. It's still really good suspension. You can get into their S build, which is just under $4,800, so about a $200 difference to the XT SLX. And at that point, I think it's just SRAM versus Shimano, because you get the GX Eagle, so you get a wider range actually. But same, you get the Fox Performance suspension, so the grip damper versus the fit dampers. But still, the grip stuff is really good, so don't be deterred by that. So that's enough for spec and pricing. Let's talk about how it climbed. So climbing wise, they both have their better attributes. They're both very good climbers for having the amount of travel they have. So I'll break it down like this. Efficiency wise, I would have to give it to the LT. I think just under, smooth pedaling on a fire road or smooth single track, the LT is going to get you up with the less amount of bob. especially if you throw it in like a trail mode, the shock, or like a climb mode, it feels near hardtail like. The 5.5, however, does better under technical climbing. So meaning when the climb becomes a little bit more rough, you have more square edge hits, the rear suspension just becomes a little bit more active and really reacts to that terrain better than the LT does. The LT almost reacts after you like almost roll over the feature. It's like it like bumps you up and then you like just compress, and that's your compression. So this is going to hang you up a little bit more on technical climbing. Again, you can kind of mess around with the suspension tune, but I don't really think anybody tunes their suspension specifically for climbing, because let's face it, these bikes are really downhill focused. So that's how we compare the climbing. The seat angles, they're fairly slackish, about 73 degrees. I have no issues because I run my sag a little bit less, so I don't sag down as much. And that number, I mean, you can hem and haw about it, but it's really going to depend on how you set up your bike. You know, how much sag you have in the back, how much sag you have up in the front. That can really change your real world seating angle once you really get down into it. So I feel comfortable on both bikes. So I don't know, take that what you want. There's a big thing about steep or slack seat tube angles. All right, now the fun part, let's talk about how both of these bikes descended. In a nutshell, both bikes were excellent, but let's, talk about the differences. So the SB5.5, when comparing the two, this is how I described it. Out of the box, I believe the 5.5 has the most potential. With the 160 millimeter fork up front, it just has a little bit more basher potential up front. It's not unbalanced as you would think, having 140 millimeters of travel out back. It's not as unbalanced as you would think, but man, the thing descends awesome. It's very stable, got the wide bars, wide tires, 29er wheels. It's just a very stable platform, and it can still get playful. The rear end, I would say, flexes a little bit more, but feels more active in terms of how it tracks the ground. So if you like a lot of feedback in your feet, and you like to know what the suspension is doing, the 5.5 is going to give that to you. Moving over to the LT, I describe this bike as a more balanced bike. It's 150 millimeters out back, 150 millimeters up front. It just feels really good. You don't feel too far off the back. You don't feel too far forward over the front. It's just a really good balanced feeling bike. Like, you could just go take this and maybe even do XC laps, because it just feels so good. That being said, the front end to me definitely felt a little less stable, but that's marginal. And I'll probably attribute that to just a little bit less travel up front. It's not going to be as slack. So it's just going to make for a little less stable bike compared to the 5.5. However, if you throw a 160 millimeter fork on there, I think that changes the game completely. Not only do you get the extra travel, you get some slacker angles. And I think having extra travel up front really unlocks what you can do with the rear, because it'll allow you to maybe go faster during rough sections, take jumps bigger, go off bigger flat objects. And because it has 10 millimeters more rear travel, I think it just gives you an overall better descending package, because the rear end can now really soak up, all the extra stuff you're going to do, because you have more stability up front. In terms of the rear end, I feel it's a little bit stiffer, but that could also be because the rear end feels a little bit more muted. So when I say muted, is you don't really feel the rear suspension working, even though it is, because you can look down at the shock and you can see the stroke just absorbing everything, but you just don't feel it in your feet. So I don't know if it's the VPP that's just absorbing all that. I mean, the traction is all there. So So if you like that type of feedback, again, you're not going to get it with the LT, you will get it with the 5.5, so take those things into consideration. So overall though, both bikes ascended well on my test track. There are some bigger hits, some square edge stuff, some rock rollers and things like that. And it definitely didn't push both of these bikes to their extreme limits, but I would say I could take the 5.5 down faster compared to the stock S build on the LT that I took. Now, when I do my write-up and summary on my LT build, I do have the 160 mil fork up front. I'll maybe come back and do a comparison on both. So next, I'm going to talk about some intangibles and things that you need to know about both bikes before you go into your purchase. Alright, so before we wrap up the video, I just want to talk about some intangibles about both bikes and things that you want to consider before maybe you purchase either. So starting with the Yeti, all internal routing for the cables. So if you like to do maintenance quite a bit on your brakes, or if you're swapping out brakes, you're most likely going to have to do a cut and bleed on the brake lines. So it makes for a nice smooth look, but just makes it a little bit more difficult maintenance wise. Also, the headset and the bottom bracket are both press fit, so you are going to need a cup removal tool and also a cup press if you're looking to do maintenance on either of those. So if you develop creaks and you need to pull those things out, the tools are definitely a little bit more expensive and it's a little bit more time consuming to do. The Switch Infinity link, I would probably say do your own research on that. I've done a little bit, and the consensus is you definitely want to keep it greased, and if you buy it secondhand and it doesn't come with the grease gun, you're going to have to buy that separately to make sure that you're keeping that switch link greased to avoid any type of premature rubbing. I have seen some videos of people saying that they've gone to do just a regular service and it turns out they needed a new link. So keep in mind, if you're going to buy this bike, that just treat it like a princess on the switch link. So moving over to the Santa Cruz Hightower LT, it's kind of opposite in terms of how Yetis are put together. So the headset is internal, so the cups are actually formed into the frame, and so the bearings are the only things that just pop in there, so you just pop those out, clean them, re-grease them, put them back in. So it's very easy, don't need any special tools. The bottom bracket is a threaded bottom bracket, so all you need is a bottom bracket wrench, which is a lot smaller, easier to pack if you're out in the races and you develop creaks and you want to get rid of it. It's just a much less expensive and easier process. You just pull the cranks off and then unthread them, clean them, put them back in. Now, I would say the lower VPP link on the all Santa Cruz bikes, they kind of have some, I won't say issues, but some care guidance to them. So what happens is when the tire rotates and it's really muddy, it flings a lot of dirt on top of the VPP link. And so what you end up doing almost subconsciously as well, you got to wash it out. So you end up taking like a spray hose and you either gently do it or you're just pressure washing it out. And on my last bike, I think doing that over and over again, it caused I guess some steps in the rear suspension action. So if I pulled the shock off or let all the air out, it wasn't very smooth. Feeling that right before I sold it compared to the new frame and feeling how the rear swing arm moved up and down, there was definitely a lot more like, it's not stiction, but just, it just kind of wasn't smooth. Keep in mind, Santa Cruz does have lifetime warranty replacement on their bearings, so something to take advantage of. And just, keep in mind of the lower VPP link, there's been a lot of different bike hacks on how to cover it and make sure that it doesn't get dirty. Rear brake cable is externally routed, so it's not going to make for the cleanest look, but it's going to make for the easiest in terms of maintenance. So, other than those, those things, the bike frames are pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of crazy things about them. They're just, two, good-looking bikes. The last thing I'll leave off with is after doing a lot of comparisons on spec, different bike checks and builds, for a similar build, the Yeti 5.5 is going to generally build up to be about a pound lighter. So there's definitely a lot of variables to that, but when apples to apples, you know, as close as possible, the Yeti is going to be a little bit lighter of a bike. That's not to say that the LT is heavy. It's just the Yeti is going to be generally almost lighter, no matter how you build it. So, well, this probably took up more time than I wanted it, but I had a lot of things I wanted to share. If you have any more questions on both of these bikes and how they compared, if I maybe explained something wrong or you got confused on how I explained it, definitely leave me a comment and I'll get back to you on that. Other than that, thanks for hanging out with me today, reviewing both of these bikes. They're both beautiful and awesome mountain bikes. So until next time, we'll see you guys later.